everyone. I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. I hope your day wasn't too much full of stress, and maybe I hope you have a glass of wine and you're ready to relax, because we've got Dr. Tanya Altmann, who is always so kind and helps at Temple Aliyah, offering all kinds of great advice. And tonight joining her is Melissa Mose, who is an anxiety specialist. They're here to talk to you all about coronavirus and the anxieties you, your young children or your older children might be feeling. So I just wanted to let you know, we are live streaming and recording this session tonight. So, and there'll be questions you can ask from the chat. So I'm going to take no more time and introduce Dr. Tanya Altmann.
Hi, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm just going to take a moment to introduce myself and give you a few of my thoughts, and then let Melissa introduce herself. And she's going to talk for a little bit about her specialty. She's an amazing therapist, psychologist in the area, and so she'll talk for a little bit, and then we're pretty much here to just answer your questions. So I'm a parent at Temple Aliyah. I think I know most of you. I have 3 boys. They're 14, 12, and 5. So my 5-year-old is in Gesher right now. And I'm the founder of Calabasas Pediatrics Wellness Center. And so in addition to being a general pediatrician for 20 years, I also spent the last few years doing some pediatric psych training. And so I do a lot of mental health at my office as well. I'm on several local COVID-19 task forces, including the one at the Temple, which really is something I wish I didn't have to do, but it's really been keeping me up to date with everything going on, because I've been having to help make the city, the schools, and the Temple, help them make these really tough decisions, like how long do we have to put off the bar mitzvahs, and how long do we have to keep the schools closed? And I know that these decisions that we're making are affecting all of you in so many ways. And I know that not everyone was happy about the school closures, but I do want you to know that it is helping. We actually are making a dent in California. And we are slowing down right now with the number of new cases we're getting. And when you look at New York, we are in a much different place than they are. So I do think we made the right decision at the right time. As soon as we saw that little bit of community spread, we shut down right away. And that's why we're recommending now that everybody stays home, to continue the social distancing so we don't continue to have the spread. But along with protecting everyone from the coronavirus, asking everyone to stay home, I know is really changing everyone's life and the family structure, and causing so many other issues, sort of unintended consequences, and some benefits. I think one of the great things is that we're all able to spend so much more time with our families right now. But although I'm enjoying that and trying to, get my families to sort of look on the bright side here and calm everyone down, and, I'm trying to help them realize that what your kids are going to remember when this is all over are not the little issues and the little facts and little stresses that are going on right now in your life, but it's going to be the memories that they have and the feelings that they have from this time together with you. And that's why I'm asking everyone to really try to create some of those amazing memories, with your kids, because that's what they're going to hold on to in the future when this all becomes part of history in our past. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Melissa Mose, who can tell you a little about herself and talk a little bit more about, about why you're all here. I know the reason we're doing this is because we've gotten so many questions at the Temple about anxiety and family stress. And so I had to bring in some of my top experts. And so Dr. Melissa Mose is one of the people who helps my families with these very issues. So I thought she would be a great person to join us tonight and help all of you and answer your questions.
Great, thank you, Tanya, and hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be doing this because as a parent of a 16-year-old and a therapist of 25 years in the Calabasas area, it really is a passion of mine to work with parents, because we have such a huge impact on our kids and how they cope with the things that are going on around them. And right now, what's going on around them is pretty intense and so different than anything we've ever experienced before. I've had a private practice in Calabasas, like I said, for 20 some odd years. And so this is wildly different for me. And I realize as somebody who specializes in working with anxiety, I'm dealing with my own situation here of taking all of my files into my home and trying to figure out what to do with my daughter, and noticing how I'm processing the stress has been an interesting part of this as well, and leads to my first silver lining, because I am all about the silver linings of these things. And that is that it helps us build compassion, and it's helping me really feel for some of the people I work with, who I work with a lot of OCD and people who have for years had severe phobias of germs, and now everything is potentially contaminated, and there's this element of reality to it. So it really is opening my heart to people. And it's different in the way that I'm working with people, because I'm in people's homes now, which is another whole aspect to the treatment. I do home visits, which is unusual for a therapist, but I have not been in so many people's homes in a week before. And what I'm seeing is just a whole gamut of experiences. People who both parents are in the home, kids are back from college who've been maybe out of the home for 3 years, all the siblings being together, people sharing a room who haven't shared a room in years. It's definitely different circumstantially, but it's also a real shift on a nonverbal level. And I guess what I'm thinking I want to talk about today is, first of all, understanding what's going on with our kids, understanding what's going on with us and how we can work with that to help our kids. And then kind of providing you with some tools to handle the practical situations. And I'm sure there will be other things that'll come up with questions, but I'm assuming most of you have kids on the younger end, but if not, you'll chime in and let me know. Because little kids are just basically little antennas, as you know, and they don't necessarily hear our words as much as they pick up on what's going on in us, in our bodies and in our nervous systems. They don't always understand what's going on. Obviously, we're the interpreters of the world outside for them. So the first thing I want to really address is the idea of anxiety and stress, and really start with the idea that accepting anxiety is really important. It's uncomfortable and we don't like it, but it generally won't kill you, right? It's something that we can handle. And I think for the first step to really try to just accept that my body's doing this thing in response to the world, and I don't need to be afraid of my own anxiety. I don't need to be afraid or try and feel like I, as the parent in the household, need to control everybody's feelings. Because I think what I'm seeing is a lot of roller coasters. A lot of really great fun and, like Tanya said, really positive, like together time. And then a lot of places where we're bumping up against each other and having it not turn out quite so well. So just, first, that we all handle anxiety a little bit differently as well. Some of us get kind of hyper aroused and really agitated and out there, and some are hypo aroused, meaning a little bit more withdrawn into themselves. Some of us act in really proactive ways, trying to prevent and avoid and manage. Some react in more reactive ways with outbursts and expressions of emotion out there in the world. And so understanding your kids and how each one maybe handles the anxiety a little different is an important piece of it. And recognizing that kids kind of express themselves in different ways, right? It's not necessarily that they're logically understanding what's going on. They may experience and express anxiety with their bodies in a somatic way. So you may be seeing tummy aches and headaches and things like that. And of course, the other way they communicate is with behavior. And I think probably a lot of us are seeing some behavior as well. And just recognizing it's not just the change in the external environment, but it's what they're picking up from us in our nonverbals and our own stress levels and our environment, like how much do we have the news on in the background, and how agitated are we because we have to learn how to cook. Like I don't know about you guys, but as a working mom, I don't cook a lot, so I'm learning, and it doesn't always turn out that well. And sometimes that can be funny, and sometimes that can not be funny. And so all of the different ways that we're managing things obviously have an impact. And then just recognizing that the behaviors that we're seeing in our kids, it's not that they're being bad, right? So how can we kind of get at and what's going on with them? I think a lot of people are asking me questions about how much do we talk about what's actually going on, and how do we talk about what's actually going on? And my answer is usually to start by listening. So we get a sense of what they do understand already, and just what their interpretations are of the things that are going on. So, so really tuning into ourselves, trying to do it with some acceptance of the discomfort that we're probably all feeling at having our lives be changed dramatically. Some of us also trying to work while being homeschool teacher and playground manager and chef and all of these different things. So taking times to tune into ourselves and take care of ourselves at the same time as we're trying to listen to what's going on underneath the things that we're seeing in our household and in our kids around us. So it's a matter of sorting it out and trying to figure out which thing is the right thing to do in the moment. And oftentimes that takes a little bit of quiet in our own heads, and sometimes takes the ability to like pay attention to the reaction that we're having and see if we can sort of get that to step aside so that we can be clear. That's not always easy to do. So I think I'm going to pause for a moment. I have a bunch of tools, but I guess I'm curious to see if there's any questions about how do we handle our own anxiety, and how do we calm ourselves enough to be with our kids in a productive way. And then I'll move on to different behaviors that you all may be seeing coming up. Is there anything?
I think that's a great place to start, because one of the things that I notice, in my practice, is that a lot of it is how the parents are acting that sort of the kids respond to. So, if you're stressed and worried and, things are coming out of, different patterns and things like that, and you can't control your feelings, your kids are going to pick up on that, and they're not going to know what to do either. So, so I think talking about how you can sort of take a deep breath and relax yourself and sort of frame everything to be calm for your kids, so that way they can sort of be in a better place and feel, so they can feel that they're safe and that there's structure going on in the house, which I think is what all the kids really ultimately need.
Right. And creating that sense of safety really is so much about calming our own nervous system, because we're communicating that on a level that, they know what we're feeling before we know what we're feeling oftentimes. So, I mean, maybe it would be helpful to take a second and have everybody sort of think about what is a typical situation that you have run into where you have a reaction, that stirs up some either, agitation or confusion about what to do, or just a reaction in you. Something that your kids keep doing that keeps happening. Maybe just think of one thing. And
so we have one here. My kid keeps hitting me, somebody said.
That's me.
That's you. Okay, right.
I wasn't going to call you out, Neely.
Okay, great. So something like that. Like my kid, right?
She's angry.
Yeah. So we'll all have our own sort of situation in our mind, but we can use that one as an example. So my kid's hitting me. So take a second and see, like, if you just are thinking about it now, what's your reaction to that? What's your immediate reaction? What comes up?
I get angry and then I give her a timeout because I think she needs my attention every second now that she's not in school. Obviously kids do better with structure. And now I'm home day in and day out with her all day long. And I'm a single parent, actually. I'm a single mom.
Right.
So it's just a really trying time right now.
Yeah.
And
it is trying. Yeah.
she doesn't want to listen at all. Like, she's become very defiant. And I don't even know how to handle her.
Okay. So let's sort of take that and slow it down. So she hits you, she wants your attention all the time. And what happens for you is the first thing you said was, I get angry. So an angry part of you comes up that's just makes sense, right? And that angry part wants to do something to stop it, which is timeout. Okay, so that's
I pick her up and I put her in timeout so that I don't, I don't want to hit her. Sometimes I'll smack her hand and say, "Don't do that. That hurts mommy."
Right. So we don't want to sink to their level and bring back the behavior that, give them back what they're doing. Right.
Right.
I think sometimes when you recognize what is that part of you trying to accomplish by getting angry and giving her a timeout, what are you trying to accomplish by doing that for yourself?
Trying to teach her that it's not okay to hit me and that she needs to think about it.
Yeah. Teach her that it's okay.
And I also take things away from her. Like, if she wants a cupcake or if she wants something sweet.
Right.
So this whole week she's wanted cupcakes because it was my birthday. So we had cupcakes. And so she was so bad this week, I didn't give her any of it.
Right.
I
So
told her,
this is one way to have, right? This is definitely one of our tools, behavioral, like rewards and punishments. And so let's put this over here as one of the tools, and I'm writing it down because I want to come back to it because it's really important, right? That's one way to handle behavior. I think another way is to see if the part of you that feels like you need to teach a lesson and we need to be a parent in this moment could step aside for a second. If you can sort of realize we have opportunities to teach, right? And just sort of get it to give you a break. What I'm wondering is, do you have a sense of, like, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't teach her this lesson? Like, what might
not
happen?
giving her the cupcake or not putting her in timeout?
If she didn't learn not to hit you, what are you afraid would happen?
She's just going to do it all the time.
Just chaos, right?
Do it when I'm on the phone, or she'll do it if I'm talking to my mom. She needs attention all the time.
So the behavior is going to keep going. I think that's what's underneath a lot of our motives with whatever it is we jump in with is, if I don't fix this now, it's just going to keep on going and it's going to get worse. And so it's a fear that we have of living in chaos, right? So what if we could find a way to not be in chaos another way, without the getting angry and the timeout and the big conflama that comes and the punishment? Would it feel like if we could teach the lesson and create a sort of a trust that there's not going to be this perpetuating behavior another way? I mean, it probably would be nice, right? Because punishment, and my sense is she keeps doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I need to, turn around and like go do an activity with her or something. But if I'm cooking in the kitchen or, and I'm like, just wait a second, Harley, mommy's making you dinner.
Right.
Just, I don't know. She was doing great for a long time. And then now it's like, we've been home too much.
The behavior's trying to communicate something, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if we can get underneath, like, what is it you're trying, like, they're not going to be able to tell us why, because that's not the age range we're talking about with. But if we can for a moment get curious, it's not that easy to do. We kind of have to get the chattering voices in our head that want to punish, teach lessons, get out of here, like run away, go to the bathtub. But if we can sort of get those voices in our head to calm for a second, sometimes you can get curious about what is going on in that little person that she keeps doing these things that always land her in trouble. She gets things taken away. She doesn't get her ice cream. I'm sure she doesn't like that. What could be going on in her? And try and slow it down to where we're getting at what's underneath. What is going on? What is what is she needing? Because my guess is our kids are kind of scared, frustrated, sad. And if we can open up some of these conversations in a calm moment, like how is it for them to not be with their friends? How is it for them to, some of them like it, some of them don't. Some of them really like being at home. Some of them are really missing their friends. But most of the time, kids can at some way or another articulate what they're wanting is attention. And when we're so tapped out, it's really hard to give them that kind of slowed down focus attention. So it goes against everybody's grain to, if your child hits you, to like slow down and be loving and kind in response, right? That's not our instinct. But if the part that just wants to scream could pause for a second, enough to open up a space of, wonder what's going on with that little person. Like even just doing it without saying something sometimes makes a shift in your kid. Sometimes just that pause. And I'm not saying as a single mom that should be easy. And I think I want to say as a, single mom myself, of a kid who's really anxious, we've been through a lot of things. I have gone through various iterations of being able to do this and not being able to do this. So I don't want to give the idea that I think it's easy, but that moment of going, I'm going to downshift in my body. Something big just happened. If I can be the one who downshifts, and I can be the one to go, whoa, what just happened here? And I can shift the tone. I can shift the level of energy. They pick up on that and it gets their attention real fast, and something different just happened. And when something different happens in us, something different happens in them. So
she probably loves to get that rise out of me too.
That's exactly it.
And then I'm getting angry because she's doing it all day and I'm like tired and.
Yeah, negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement have one thing in common. They're both reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They both make things happen more, right? And so when she gets you real riled up, she got the attention that she wanted. And so, yeah, she's going to do it again. Kids are great at learning. They learn, like, that worked. I mean, it got me something, right? And older kids I work with can actually articulate that. I just had somebody today who is threatening to kill family members, like didn't mean it. It's threatening to kill himself, family members, whatever, and straight up say, well, I just really wanted somebody to pay attention to what I was trying to say. It's like, well, you got their attention. But hopefully we're going to train kids to do it in different ways. And so when we go back to them when they're calm and then and give them attention they didn't have to ask for, sometimes that then is the positive, reinforcement, that to sort of give them what they want when they're not asking for it can sort of alleviate some of that tension. But it's definitely challenging. And I guess what I would encourage everybody to do as much as possible is, like, we all have these reactions to our kids that we're then not proud of at times because we're human beings. And to just sort of not beat yourself up about it, but ask, what was I actually trying to accomplish? I was really just trying to get some peace in my household, or I was really trying to, stop something bad from happening, or, and then recognize that we have various different ways of doing that if we can just pause long enough to have the presence of mind to respond from our like centered self and be self-led rather than reaction-led.
Another thing, this works a little better for older kids, but I usually tell parents, it's okay if you make a mistake. It's perfectly fine to, in the morning say, we're going to have a family meeting and talk about what happened yesterday. I know mommy was acting really stressed and crazy last night. And, I had time to think about it and I really overreacted last night and I'm really sorry, but, today I'm going to be better. And I want to make sure that we do family activities and I spend time with you, and then kind of like lay out a structure, for everybody. So, for a 3-year-old, she's not really going to know if you sort of apologize, although you can just show her the next day by trying to have some activities, to do with her. But for older kids, I love telling them when I've made mistakes because that's how they learn too. I saw there was another question here. So trying to work from home and kids constantly interrupting and then losing patience and getting anxious and not being able to get all the work done and the homeschooling done. And I feel like this is something that a lot of us are going back and forth, with all day long.
Right. So, right. So give me a sense of age. Is that same 3-4-year-old?
Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi.
So I have a second grader and a sixth grader.
Okay.
So the sixth grader is fairly independent. And
Right.
the second grader is too at times.
Right.
But obviously just the nature of homeschooling a second grader requires more parent direction and parent involvement.
Right.
And so,
Right. And so the issue is the constant interruptions of coming in while you're trying to work.
right.
Right.
Like, an email takes me 10 times longer because every other thought is interrupted.
Right. There are things that you can do in terms of like giving them like interruption coupons, right? That this is how many you have. And so, and they can bring them in each, time. I think with a second grader, obviously better than a sixth grader. It's definitely a difficult one, setting up the boundaries really clearly and saying, I'm going to be here for this many minutes, then, and then I'll come back. I think sometimes it's better when they know you're coming back and that you actually show them that you are coming back, and rather than like you control the interruptions that way, right? So their job is to sit and have you come in, but you actually set it up in the beginning so you're going to come in more frequently, probably more than they want, and sort of do the training of them expecting you to come. But you're doing emails, not phone calls and things like that?
Both. Yeah. I mean, Zoom conference calls and meetings and phone calls and emails and the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm big with like I said earlier, star charts and rewards. So, waiting until an allotted time gets a reward, gets like a sticker on a chart, which is working towards something. And a lot of praise when they're able to hold off.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that I don't even really blame her. I don't think that it's excessive to want, some assistance. It's more the frustration with the situation.
Yeah.
Right. And then just feeling that, you ask the question of like, when are you feeling that anxiety coming on? Like, that's the minute, when I'm feeling it coming on, when it's like, I don't blame her. She needs me. Like, this is a bad situation that we're all in. Like, when everything's coming at you at one moment.
Yeah. Right. And that's the struggle I think that we sit with, where part of us is frustrated by the situation and part of us really understands and cares about our child and wants to be there for them. And so it's a tug of war within us of, I want to be there for my kid and I have to do this other thing. And then it gets interrupted.
Yeah. It's just like a feeling of not being able to do any one thing really well.
And just acknowledge that. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what about a schedule? So I think with second and sixth graders, that's often when I have the families do their family meeting and come up with the schedule. So like, in my house, I'll say, okay, we do it in hour chunks, right? So usually like, okay, mommy's gonna play with Maxton for this hour and we're gonna do this activity. And then the big boys are gonna be in homeschool. And this is the time when mommy has to work. And so they kind of know, that I'm gonna be going into the other room. And then you just like Melissa said, you come out at regular intervals, but if you have it all written up so they know, because they have a clock at that age, they can tell time as opposed to the 3-year-olds. And so they know like when it's their time with you and when you're really working and they can't bother you. But what I think sometimes happens is we get so caught up in our work, we're always kind of only half with our kids. So when we can sort of separate it and be completely 100% present in one situation or the other one, then I think it works better, for everyone. And it's hard to do that. I mean, I'm always on call, but I know that like when I say, okay, this hour my phone's going to go away and I'm just going to play board games with the kids, they enjoy it so much. It's so much more relaxing because you're just able to focus on them and put everything else away. And then when I say, okay, now's the time when mommy has to go to work, you guys have to do this on your own, they respect it and they listen.
I totally agree with that. I do think it's quality, quality, not quantity. And when they know that you are coming at a certain point in time, and when you do, you're going to be there with them, you're not going to be on your phone. It definitely helps. And, keeping routines in place during this time, I can't really stress that enough. It's so soothing for them to have a structure. It doesn't have to be the same structure as school, but it's helpful that a lot of the schools are really kind of providing that as well. But keeping a structure in place and the routine of your meals and things as normal as possible, even though you're trying to be in two places at one time for part of it, it's just a challenge. And I think just really acknowledging that we're torn, and that it's okay to feel that and struggle with it and try and really take care of yourself and ask for help when you need it, I think that's an important piece of it as well.
There's another question here, which I think is something that we're all going to be wondering about, in another month or two, if we don't get to go back to school. But how do we sort of give our kids the best closure at the end of the year, especially the pre-K and Gesher kids that are going to be graduating and going to a new school next year to kindergarten, because normally they'd have this culmination sort of where it all ends. So what advice do you have for moms? What can they do at home to sort of provide their kids with, the closure and the transition to their next step?
Right. And I'm not aware of what this particular, if there's anything happening through the school with you guys or not. I know some schools are doing some sort of things virtually, but I think a little family ceremony is really important. I think that family ceremonies can be so meaningful, and we often don't do them privately. We don't do them in our own homes, but special dinners, memory books, having like even a little certificate you can make for graduation. And I think probably there's going to be something provided through the school, right? Do you know?
We'll probably do something virtual, but yeah,
there will be something virtual.
Those are all great ideas.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it has to be marked because it is, it is the end of something big. And this is one of the things that I think a lot of kids, grief is a big word for a preschool kid, but there's a sense of loss that everybody has because it's not going to be, and, we're not sure yet. Hopefully people will get to go back for a little bit, but assuming that it doesn't, I think it's important to mark it with something special.
Yeah. So other questions here. Let's see, I've had to work late at night because the kids need me most of the day. So this might be more of a mom question and how to sort of, work on her hours, because it's exhausting. I know my hours have been crazy and it's been really exhausting too. And then also about defiance in kids that don't want to follow the schedule you put together.
Right. Boy, working late at night, time is finite. That is just such a tough one. And I guess we're all a little different in terms of how much sleep we need, but I know that I can't give what I don't have. And if I'm not well rested, I'm not at my best. Some things just can't be helped though. And so I think a big piece that goes along with that is giving yourself a break and being compassionate with yourself and knowing that you're going to do the best you can do. And what we're talking about a lot of the time is fostering resilience. And we're going to make mistakes. We're going to be tired and snap. I think especially if you're working late at night, it's just going to be hard to be at your best. But apologizing when you like Tanya was saying, if you make a mistake or you snap, or just sort of teaching kids that we're human. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be tired. The things that challenge us are opportunities for our kids to learn how to face the challenges. And I do think asking for help is an important one. And how is that for us to, and sometimes it's limited, what help we can actually get. But that's what I would say about the working late. I just think things are as they are right now. And the more we can just be really honest and simple about that, and in basic language, that, you know, things are difficult and life is different, and we're doing everything we can to make sure you're safe and happy and life is fun, and we learn and we do all the things we're supposed to be doing, but it's not always going to go the way we want. So mommy's tired right now, and you know, we can play cards but not hopscotch. You know, really acknowledging that it is an opportunity. Sometimes some of us get to be such super moms, you know. It is an opportunity to say, yeah, I'm a person too, and teach that's okay. In terms of defiance, yeah, you know, to a certain extent, like tantrums and defiance are really normal for young kids. It doesn't mean that your child's going to grow up to be a sociopath, you know, again, so to not be afraid of it in a certain way, that some kids need to do more experimenting to find out where the limits are, and than others do. So what's important is that when we set one, we keep it. So to be really careful about the ones that you put out there. Because sometimes the path of least resistance at this age is like not a bad option. Sometimes it isn't really that big a deal if they don't do their schoolwork right now, to really take the big big picture and the context of the situation into account. But when it's been clearly stated and we're dealing with testing and defiance, it's a little bit different. And I always feel like the less emotion, the better. The more neutral we can stay in our emotions, and the more we can make it about their choices and there being consequences, the better. So I really like it when things are set up ahead of time, where, you know, there may be one warning. I like that's one, that's two, that's three, and you know that on the third warning, these are the consequences. And then I can be really sad that you made that choice. You know, I can be really sad for you that you decided to not do that, because as we agreed earlier, that means you don't get this. And maybe next time you'll choose better. You probably will, because it's better if we can be really neutral and matter of fact and not be angry at the person, but just actually let them have the consequence that we agreed would happen. When we get angry, they tend to take it personally and think they're bad. And then you get somebody, you know, then they act bad. But, you know, as little emotion as possible, as much structure and things set up ahead of time as possible. And then that really just neutral, I'm sorry you made that choice, because now we've got to do this.
So I noticed there's a few screen time questions. I didn't know if we could transition, you know, to that. I get this question a lot from my families, and I see 3 people here asked it. You know, it seems like we are having to be a little more lax on the screen time rules now, right? Because we're home more, and kids are doing, you know, online school, Zoom classes with their teachers, even in preschool. And so what sort of should the rules be? So, you know, just to give you a little bit of my framework, is I'm actually a big no screen time on school day person for elementary and older kids. And so that's usually how my house runs. But right now things are different. And we had a family meeting the first night, and my older kids voiced their opinion and came up with what they wanted. And Maxton came up with what he wanted, and we settled on an agreement. And so I think that, you know, that as long as you have the rules set, you know, then that's okay. So what I usually like to do is keep everything kind of in hour chunks at this age. For littler kids, sometimes a half an hour is better. So, you know, class time, of course, is educational, and that's fine. And if there's not organized class time, you might be doing some sort of online education anyway, and that's okay, you know, in the middle of the day. And then you want to have your FaceTime, whether it's your iPad or the phone, to communicate with friends and family that you can't see otherwise in person. So that might be grandparents, other family members, and even some little virtual play dates with friends are fine. But again, I would probably limit that to like about an hour. And then if you want to do like an hour of, you know, age appropriate TV shows, I'm totally fine with that right now, because that's kind of the time that we can sort of get our little break, which is something that I usually don't recommend, using screen time for that break. But because of what's going on right now, I think that's totally appropriate. And then if you want to do family movie nights where you're actually watching with your kids, which is really the best way to do it, and talking about it, that's something else okay too. But what I'd like to encourage everyone not to do is just let their kids be on the screen, playing mindless games, watching mindless videos all day long, nonstop, because that takes away so much time from other things they could be doing, and they're going to get used to it. And it's hard to draw that back, once you let them have it unlimited. What do you think, Melissa?
Oh, I just, yeah, totally agree with that. I think it is tough to take it back. That's the tricky part. And that being said, there are positive uses of screen time. So, if you are in the, I need to work, and using it as our break kind of opportunity, there's some positive ways to use it. And I think the social bit is really important. I think it's so nice for them to be able to see each other's faces, just to normalize life a little bit. But yeah, I would agree. I do think all watching together is so nice when it's possible.
Another, another thing that I often recommend when parents do need to get some work done is giving kids projects to do that they think are so exciting. Like, hey, can you try to build a really tall castle with those blocks while mommy does a little bit of work? And then I'll come over in 15 minutes and help you with it. And we'll see, is it as tall as this? Is it as tall as this? So with little kids, it's so easy to give them things to do. Even if it's like, stacking up things in this room. Oh, can you stack them up in the other room now? Wow, that's so cool. Do you think you can stack them up in every room of the house? And they'll get really excited by these things that just take time and are creative and kind of, old school, like go back to retro where they can, do art projects and, guess how many beans they can fill into the spaghetti pot, things like that. So it doesn't always have to be, all about electronics.
I actually have worked with a family where they had the great idea to have theme days. And so they were having a blanket fort day. And so, various different projects would go on at different times during the day, of blanket forts here or pillow fort there. And so it sort of served that purpose. Those kinds of things definitely help. And it makes it also, sometimes it can be a time limited, like a short, it doesn't take a lot of time investment, but it's meaningful and it creates the memories, like Tanya was saying earlier. And pointing out the silver linings. Another one is the chalkboard paint, and being able to, keep adding to each other's drawings throughout the day. Meaningful little things like that. Or a family collage where everybody gets to add to it. And you can sort of send them off to do aspects of different little theme projects. But we do have to get creative and keep it positive as much as we can.
We did a whole day of scavenger hunts, which was actually started by the Gesher teachers, who gave us a little scavenger hunt that only took 1 minute. So then we made it into longer scavenger hunts throughout the day. And I think by the end of the day, we had done 10 different scavenger hunts, which was, really fun. Also, the weather is so nice right now. You really want to make sure that you spend time outside. And, hopefully that could be exercising with your kids, but even just letting them play outside. There's so many, if you have a safe backyard, just let them go run around outside and do things outside, even if you're sitting out there doing your work and returning your emails. It's so healthy to just be out in the fresh air for at least an hour a day.
Definitely healthy. And you can combine that with the scavenger hunt and bring in little things, leaves, and, throw that into the collage. But yeah, the outdoor thing and exercise, I don't know if I don't think we've talked about that yet, but boy, we all need it. And these little bodies really, really need it. And it's incredibly helpful with anxiety. So, depending on your outdoor space, being walks and hikes are great. But even just doing some family sit-ups and push-ups together, I think it can be really fun. doing just little jumping up and down. Let's have a dance party. Dance parties are great exercise. The music on and we just dance and dance and dance and work up a sweat and call it, you know, call it fun, but we're getting exercise.
Yeah.
The other thing is getting out into the world is drives. We can all get in our car safely and we don't have to get out of it, right? So I don't know what you think about this, but I really feel like there's some people that I've worked with who've been getting out and driving through the canyons just to be out in the world and then coming home. And it's a change of scenery, kind of breaks the stir crazy a little bit. So some people are really enjoying that.
Yeah. We had a neighborhood parade today. One of the boys in our neighborhood was having a birthday. So what they organized was that he stood by his front door and about 20 different cars of people drove by and yelled out their window and waved and said, happy birthday. And everyone was in their own family car. So everyone was clearly 6 feet apart in their own car, circling around the neighborhood, celebrating this kid's birthday. And it was actually a really cool, fun thing to do.
What a sweet thing. What a nice, that's fantastic.
Let's talk about sleep a little bit. Is that okay before we finish up maybe? Because I think I heard, no one's asked it here, but I was hearing a lot from Robin and Andrea that a lot of moms were asking about sleep and that kids were kind of having trouble sleeping and routines were getting off. And there were some like maybe nightmares, night terrors also going on. And they weren't sure if that was just because of, you know, everything happening.
Yeah, that's an issue? Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, sleep gets disrupted when I think things are, well, for so many different reasons, but right now what it seems like is there's this sort of pervasive, like unsettled feeling in the air all the time and they don't really understand what it is. And so, you know, I'm a big fan of when you talk about things in the daylight, it definitely makes it less likely that they're going to pop up in dreams. But we're not trying to make it a big deal, but sometimes we name it to tame it, right? And just say that, yeah, people are having some feelings and we can talk with kids about how big their feelings are by doing like, how big are your feelings? Like, are they little feelings? Are they big? How big are your feelings? This, you know, works with a lot of different things. But in terms of sleep, sometimes just talking about feelings in the daylight is a really good first step. And to put things sort of into like, kind of like externalize, right? So if there's something going on, we might want to draw it and put it in the other room for nighttime. I think dream catchers work really well. You can make one, that can be one of your little projects with some string and things like that. But, or sometimes we've done ghost spray where you put water in a little spray kit and it's ghost repellent or monster repellent or bad dream repellent. That can be just really helpful. You can put a little lavender in it and it smells nice. But bad dreams are a tough one to deal with. And I just think a lot of times it's about sort of getting all those things out and externalizing them during the day.
Yeah, also I think making sure that your routine is consistent so that you still have that consistent similar bedtime routine that is sort of sacred and preserved, you know, at your house to kind of relax your child and let them know that you're there and read your books or whatever it is that you do to help them go to sleep on time. Because I think one of the things that I'm seeing is kids' bedtimes are often getting pushed a little later now because they're sleeping in a little later and often because parents are busy watching CNN and whatever's at night. Wait, just 5 more minutes. I have to hear what's going on. And so, you know, it's really important that 45 minutes before your child's bedtime that, you know, everything gets turned off and quiet. I mean, ideally screens are off an hour before bedtime, but I always say bedtime should be 45 minutes of just you and your child and calm. And, you know, getting ready for bed, whether that's bath or brushing teeth, having your little routine, reading a book, getting in bed, scratching their back, you know, kisses, your spray if you want to keep, you know, the bad dreams away, and then good night. And so sometimes we see more nightmares and night terrors and things like that when the kids aren't getting enough quality sleep and the routines are a little disrupted. So often getting them back on that routine, you know, can often help.
It's tempting to change the routines when we don't actually have to get up and go to school and get out the door, but it does help to keep them. It helps a lot to keep them roughly the same time. Definitely agree with that.
And then also in the morning when your kids wake up, no matter what you're doing, you need to be there and present and give them that big morning hug and hi. And like, even if like you have 5 emails that you want to answer, like, you know, it's important to say good morning, have breakfast with them, and really take that initial time. Just like when you pick them up from school, you can't just take them home and then go to work. You have to spend a chunk of time with them. So that way they understand that you're present, and that way you can then transition and separate afterwards to do what you need to do. So, you know, that morning routine is also just as important to help your kids start off the day right. There was a medical question here that I wanted to answer. Someone asked about visiting grandparents, and it's totally appropriate to ask that. So, you know, there's this idea now, or these recommendations for a 14-day quarantine period, because if you're exposed to anyone with coronavirus, it can take 14 days for symptoms to present. So a lot of people are asking now, if we've been quarantined for 14 days and the grandparents have been quarantined for 14 days, you know, is it okay to see them? Well, to be truly quarantined means that you haven't gone out or had contact with anyone, because every time you leave your house is a chance of exposure. Not to scare you, but anytime you leave your house, you definitely could be exposed to the virus. And the reason why we're trying to protect grandparents is because they are the ones that are most vulnerable. But, you know, if in your family, you want to make that decision that the grandparents are with you in this quarantine unit and you're all going to be together for that time, and you're getting this together, you know, that's something that each family sort of has to decide. But in most cases, you know, anyone who has heart issues, lung issues, is elderly, it's really best to sort of stay away from them right now and to use the FaceTime just in case, because you don't want to infect them. And I know that we have all the grandparents staying away right now. We even did a virtual birthday party for grandma where we dropped off a cake at her house in the morning, and we had the same cake at our house. And then we did a birthday party over FaceTime where we ate the same cake in 2 different houses. And really that's more, you know, to protect them from us, because even though everybody in my house is home, I'm still going out once in a while to work or the grocery store when I need to. And even though I'm so careful, I just don't want any of us to be responsible, you know, for infecting them. But that's something that you should decide, you know, as a family. But it also does need to be a small group. So this cannot be like extended families, because it really needs to be a group of less than 10 people. I do think, though, we're going to be home for quite some time. That's another question people are asking. And it's so hard to know. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. We really don't know. But we have been doing a good job in California by staying home. And what I'm recommending now is that everybody really plans to stay home through April. It's actually a national campaign that I'm working on. Stay home April COVID-19, it's a hashtag. But I think if we all can stay home through April, we have a much better chance of getting through this and getting back to normal life sooner. Otherwise, if we all just kind of do this sort of, you know, a little bit, but not fully, this is gonna last till August. So, you know, we have to look at the data, and we need a lot more data in California because we're really not testing that well right now. But we have been doing a really good job, I can tell you, to decrease community spread by staying home. But it's not long enough yet. So we are going to be in this a little while longer. And I know that's why the rabbis were looking into virtual seders and Zoom seders, and just really, you know, urging everyone to please, you know, not have big family seders, even though I know it's so hard because we have this tradition, you know, every year. But it's really important that we stay, you know, in our own little bubbles right now, and we connect virtually with each other. Any last questions? Oh, going to the grocery store. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend only going to the grocery store when you need to. I mean, this is a time that is in some ways fun because you get to use everything that's left in your cupboard, right? And you can teach your kids, hey, what can we make out of those big beans in the can in the back of the cupboard? You know, we don't need to have bananas all the time. But I think, you know, once a week, once every other week is an appropriate time to go out and get what you need or have it delivered. But again, when you go to the store, anytime you're out and about, you could potentially be exposed. So it is very important that you take precautions, that you wash your hands, that you wipe off anything that's delivered to your door before bringing it inside. Any other questions? Melissa, is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
Well, just to hang in there. And, you know, it is true that the sort of the one of the things we're getting to all do is learn to be with ourselves in a different way. And this is my big campaign with everybody. We're all sitting with a lot of uncertainty and not knowing and recognizing the extent to which we don't have control over things. But to really actually kind of get okay with that is the challenge, and to start to focus on the things that we do have control over, the little things that we can do with our kids, the little moments of joy, and being right in the here and now. Because anytime we actually look around ourselves and our world and look at our kids and look at where we are right now, we're okay. We really are okay right now. And to bring it back into that moment is a really helpful reminder that we can be in this experience and still be at peace. And that's really what I think our kids need.
Thank you very much for joining us. There's one last medical question, I guess. Is there a move to more available testing in Los Angeles? So, testing really varies right now. We don't have great community testing available. They've tried some drive-throughs. I think there was one in Simi. Kaiser has one. It sort of depends. Private doctors can test. I'm testing my patients and sending it to the lab when I feel it's necessary. But it's taking a while. It's taking about a week. But there will be more testing available in the next week or two, where we will have more rapid turnaround. So I would ask your doctor, your pediatrician. I think the pediatricians are often doing more testing than the adult doctors because we feel more comfortable with it. So I'm testing parents in my practice too. But it's something that you need to talk to your own doctor about. But there's also recommendations about if you're just a little bit sick, do you really need to get tested? So if you're sick, you should assume that you have COVID-19 right now. I mean, that's really the biggest thing spreading through the community right now. So if you're feeling okay, if you're not having trouble breathing, if your kids are eating okay, they're not looking too sick, they're acting okay, there's no wheezing, they can actually stay at home. Most of the kids are really doing fine. It's just that they transmit the germs to everyone, which is why we took them out of school to lock them down. I mean, truthfully, if we wanted to end this sooner, we would put all the kids in school, let them all get infected, and we would reach herd immunity really quickly. And then that would stop the spread through our population. But we really can't do that because then we're risking the vulnerable people in our families and our population, and that would overwhelm the healthcare system, and we would have way too many serious illness and death that we don't want, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So right now, if you have mild illness, the recommendation is really to stay home. And if your illness is severe enough that you do need to be seen, that's when you call your doctor or call the hospital before you go. I think that's about it.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Dr. Melissa Mose for her great advice and her ideas and her time. And as always, Dr. Tanya Altmann for her expertise. We always love having you talk to us about whatever the topics are of the day. One thing at the beginning of this, we talked about always looking for the silver lining. So I just would like to end it with that. Try to just look for the silver lining in every day and breathe and just do the best you can do. I think that was one of the best pieces of advice of the night, because that's all we can do. And let's all stay healthy and safe. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Andrea. I think we're all lucky to be in such a wonderful community. And I know that Temple Aliyah has a lot more things coming up too, for ways for people to communicate and chat with each other and spend holidays together. And, and I'm happy to come back and answer questions, any other time as well.
Thanks so much.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks, Tanya.
Night.
Good night, everyone. Sweet